Don't underestimate this tiny euro cent. Millions of these coins circulate every day, but some examples can stand out because of rare errors, unusual designs, or exceptional condition. If yours looks even slightly different from a normal coin, stop and check it carefully. You may have found something special. If you have this 5 cent coin, you might be holding something far more interesting than ordinary pocket change. Some collectors have searched for coins like this for years, hoping to discover an unusual strike, a rare minting error, or an exceptionally preserved example. And if your coin has one of the right characteristics, you could be looking at a piece that attracts serious collector attention. So before you spend it, stop and take a close look, because this tiny coin may have a story worth discovering. You might even be one of the luckiest coin owners in the world if your example turns out to be an extremely unusual variety or error. The 5 cent coin belongs to the first generation of euro coins introduced when the euro currency began circulating in physical form. These small copper-colored coins quickly became part of everyday life across Europe, passing through millions of hands, shops, vending machines, and cash registers. But what makes a coin interesting to collectors is not simply the denomination printed on it. The country of issue, mint mark, condition, striking quality, and especially unusual errors can dramatically change collector interest. That is why two coins that look almost identical at first glance can have completely different values. One important thing to understand is that there was not just one single version of the 2001 5 cent coin. Different euro area countries produced their own national designs on the reverse side, while sharing the common European denomination side. For example, Spain, Finland, Belgium, France, the Netherlands, and other countries issued their own versions, meaning you need to identify the country before estimating the value of your coin. This is where the hunt becomes exciting. Turn the coin over and carefully examine every detail. Look at the central design, inscriptions, national symbols, mint marks, and the date. Then inspect the edge and the surface under good lighting. Search for anything that appears different from a normal example. A doubled design, unusual lettering, missing details, an off-center strike, a wrong planchet, or another genuine minting error can make a coin much more interesting to collectors. But there is an important warning. Not every strange-looking coin is automatically rare. Damage caused after the coin left the mint, scratches, dents, corrosion, or intentional alterations generally do not create extraordinary value. Serious collectors want evidence that an unusual feature was created during the minting process. Condition also matters enormously. A heavily circulated coin with scratches and worn details will normally be worth much less than an example with sharp design elements, clean surfaces, and strong original appearance. Some 2001 issues were produced in very large numbers. For example, Numismatics records 213,673,000 regular 5 cent pieces for Finland in 2001, while Spain produced 216,100,000 regular examples. These numbers show why simply owning a 2001 5 cent coin does not automatically mean you have a valuable rarity. In fact, ordinary examples can have values close to face value depending on the country and condition. Numismatics' current indicative figures show many circulated examples around a few cents, while better uncirculated pieces can bring somewhat higher amounts. So where does the excitement about huge prices come from? It comes from exceptional coins, not ordinary pocket change. In the world of numismatics, extraordinary prices can sometimes be associated with major minting mistakes, unique varieties, extremely rare specimens, or coins with exceptional provenance and condition. This is why collectors pay close attention to auction results. Auctions provide an important way to see what buyers are actually willing to pay for specific coins. Although an auction price for a rare error or special specimen should never be treated as the guaranteed value of every normal coin of the same date and denomination. If someone tells you that every 2001 5 cent is worth $80,000, be very careful. A regular circulated example is not automatically worth anything close to that amount. The real treasure would have to be an extraordinarily rare and authenticated specimen with characteristics that justify such a price. That distinction is extremely important if you are checking coins at home. So take your coin, place it under a bright light, and compare both sides carefully with reliable reference photographs. Check the date, country design, lettering, rim, relief, and overall condition. If something looks genuinely unusual, do not clean the coin. Cleaning can reduce collector value by damaging the original surface. Instead, keep it safely in a protective holder and consider having the unusual feature examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. And remember, the most exciting discoveries are sometimes hiding in ordinary places. A coin that has been sitting unnoticed in a drawer, old collection, jar, or box of foreign change could deserve a closer inspection. If your 2001 5 euro cent has a confirmed minting error, an exceptionally scarce variety, or an outstanding grade, collectors may take a much greater interest in it. And that is when auction discussions become truly exciting. So, are you one of the luckiest people in the world because you have this coin? Maybe, but don't assume it until you identify exactly what you have. The final value depends on the country, variety, condition, authenticity, and most importantly, whether there is a documented market for that specific unusual example. And now comes the big number that gets collectors talking: $80,000. Could a 5 euro cent ever be associated with a figure like that? Only an extraordinary, properly authenticated rarity with exceptional circumstances could potentially command an astonishing price, and such a figure should never be presented as the normal value of a standard 2001 coin. So check yours carefully, because the difference between ordinary pocket change and a serious collectible can sometimes be hidden in the smallest details. If you have a 2001 5 euro cent, don't spend it until you have examined it closely. You may not have an $80,000 treasure, but you might discover something unusual that deserves a place in your collection. And if you find a strange error or rare-looking feature, tell us about it in the comments. You could be holding the next fascinating coin story waiting to be discovered. If you have a 2 euro cent coin dated 2006, stop before you spend it, because that tiny copper-colored coin could be hiding a detail that collectors would want to investigate. Most people would look at a coin like this and see only 2 cents, but experienced collectors know that the smallest coins can sometimes contain surprising stories. If your particular coin has an unusual minting error, a scarce variety, or exceptional condition, you could be holding something far more interesting than ordinary pocket change. So check your coin carefully, because you might just be one of the luckiest people in the world to find an unusual example in your own collection. The 2 euro cent coin is one of the smallest denominations of the euro currency, and since the introduction of euro coins, billions of these little pieces have entered circulation across Europe. The coin is copper-colored and features the common European side, shared by euro area countries, while the national side identifies the country that issued the coin. This is the first thing you should check when examining your 2006 example. Don't simply look at the date. Look at the entire design and determine which country produced the coin. That detail matters because different countries had different designs, minting quantities, and collecting markets. A 2006 2 euro cent from one country can be completely different from a 2006 2 euro cent from another. Some were produced in enormous quantities for everyday circulation, while certain special issues, varieties, or minting errors can attract considerably more attention. Now take your coin and place it under a bright light. Look closely at the date, lettering, national symbols, rim, and central design. Examine both sides slowly. Is anything doubled? Does a letter appear unusually thick or distorted? Is the design noticeably off-center? Does the rim look abnormal? Are there missing details that should normally be present? These are the kinds of characteristics that can make collectors stop and investigate. But there is an important difference between a genuine minting error and ordinary damage. A scratch created by another coin, a dent from circulation, corrosion, discoloration, or damage caused by someone intentionally modifying the coin does not automatically make it valuable. Genuine mint errors happen during the manufacturing process, and they generally need to be examined carefully before making any claim about rarity or price. Condition is another major factor. A heavily circulated 2 euro cent with scratches and worn details will usually have very little premium above its face value. On the other hand, a coin that has remained in excellent condition, with sharp details and minimal marks, can be more attractive to collectors. Extremely high-grade examples can sometimes bring stronger prices, especially when combined with a desirable variety or error. And this is where auction results become interesting. Collectors and dealers regularly use auction records to understand what buyers have actually paid for particular coins. But remember, an auction price for one extraordinary specimen does not mean every coin with the same date is worth the same amount. The exact variety, condition, authenticity, and rarity all matter. You may have heard stories about ordinary-looking coins supposedly being worth $10,000, $20,000, or even $80,000. And yes, spectacular prices can happen in numismatics, but they are normally connected to exceptionally rare pieces, major errors, extraordinary condition, or coins with a documented history that makes them desirable. A normal circulated 2006 2 cent should never automatically be valued at $80,000 simply because of its date. So if someone tells you that your 2006 2 cent is worth $80,000, don't immediately celebrate. First, identify the country, compare the design with trusted references, and determine whether the unusual feature is actually a recognized minting error or variety. If you believe you have discovered something special, don't clean the coin. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector interest. Instead, protect it in a suitable holder and consider getting an expert opinion. Now imagine finding one of these coins in an old jar, a drawer, a forgotten collection, or even in your everyday change. You pick it up, notice something unusual, and suddenly that tiny coin becomes the center of your attention. That's exactly why coin collecting is so exciting. You never know what might be hiding among ordinary coins. And now let's talk about the number that gets everyone's attention, $80,000. Could a 2006 2 cent ever be connected to an extraordinary auction price like that? Only under exceptional circumstances, and certainly not for a normal example. A legitimate $80,000 valuation would require extraordinary evidence, authentication, extreme rarity, and a market willing to pay that amount. So don't confuse an exciting possibility with the ordinary market value of a common coin. The real lesson is simple. Check before you spend. Look at the country, design, mint mark, date, condition, and every unusual detail. If your coin has something genuinely rare, you may have discovered a fascinating collectible hiding in plain sight. So, are you one of the luckiest people in the world because you have a 2006 2 cent? Maybe you are, but only a careful examination can reveal the truth. Check your coin today, because the smallest coins can sometimes create the biggest surprises. And if you discover an unusual 2006 2 cent, tell us what you found in the comments. Your coin could be the next fascinating discovery we investigate. If you have a 1 cent coin dated 2002, do not spend it just yet, because the tiny coin in your hand could be much more interesting than it looks. Most people would see 1 cent and immediately think it is almost worthless, but coin collectors know that even the smallest denomination can sometimes hide unusual varieties, minting errors, and exceptionally preserved examples. If your coin happens to have the right characteristics, you could be holding a piece that deserves serious attention. You might even be one of the luckiest people in the world to discover a rare coin hiding in ordinary change. The 1 cent coin was introduced as part of the euro coin system, and these tiny copper-colored pieces quickly became some of the most commonly circulated coins in Europe. The common side features the denomination and European design, while the national side carries the design selected by the country that issued the coin. That national side is extremely important when examining your 2002 example because there wasn't just one single version of the 1 cent coin. Countries across the euro area produced their own national designs, and production numbers varied from one country to another. So before thinking about value, turn your coin over and identify the issuing country. Look closely at the national design, inscriptions, symbols, and any mint marks. Then examine the date. But don't stop there. The real clues could be hidden in the smallest details. Take the coin under a bright light and inspect the lettering carefully. Look for unusual doubling, distorted letters, missing design elements, an unusually thick rim, an off-center strike, or other features that appear different from a normal example. A genuine minting error can sometimes make a common coin much more interesting to collectors. However, be careful, because damage that happened after the coin left the mint is not the same thing as a genuine mint error. Scratches, dents, corrosion, discoloration, or damage from machines can make a coin look strange, but they generally don't create major collector value. A real minting error happens during production, and serious collectors usually want evidence that the unusual feature is genuine. Condition is another major factor. Imagine two identical 1 euro-cent coins. One has been circulating for years, covered in scratches and with worn details. The other has sharp lettering, clear design elements, and an exceptionally clean original surface. Even though they share the same denomination and date, collectors may view them very differently. This is why auction records can be so fascinating. When a rare variety or extraordinary error appears at auction, collectors can compete for it, and the final selling price can sometimes be surprisingly high. But there is a very important point to remember. An extraordinary auction result applies to that specific coin, not automatically to every coin with the same year. You may have heard claims that a 2002 1 euro-cent could be worth thousands of dollars or even $80,000. But don't assume your ordinary coin is worth that amount. A normal circulated example is generally not a hidden fortune simply because it carries the 2002 date. A huge price would require something extraordinary, such as a genuinely rare mint error, an exceptionally scarce variety, or a specimen in remarkable condition with strong authentication and collector demand. That's why you should never clean your coin when you discover something unusual. Cleaning can scratch the surface and remove the original appearance that collectors value. Instead, keep the coin safe in a protective holder and have it examined by a knowledgeable numismatist or professional grading service if you believe you've discovered a significant error. Now think about where these coins can be found. Maybe yours has been sitting inside an old collection. Maybe it was forgotten in a drawer, hidden inside a jar of foreign change, or simply came back to you as everyday change. That's what makes coin hunting so exciting. A coin that looks completely ordinary at first glance can sometimes deserve a much closer inspection. And now we reach the number that grabs everyone's attention, $80,000. Could a 1 euro-cent connected to this date ever be associated with an extraordinary auction price like that? Only in an exceptional situation, and definitely not simply because it is a 2002 coin. To justify a price anywhere near that level, the coin would need extraordinary rarity, strong evidence of authenticity, exceptional condition, and buyers willing to compete for it at auction. So if someone tells you that every 2002 1 euro-cent is worth $80,000, don't believe the claim without checking the evidence. The real value of your coin depends on the country of issue, exact variety, minting characteristics, condition, rarity, and actual market demand. If you have this coin, you might be one of the luckiest people in the world, but the only way to find out is to inspect it carefully. Check both sides, study the lettering, examine the rim, identify the country, and compare your coin with trusted numismatic references. And remember, don't spend it until you've checked it. That tiny 1 euro-cent could be completely ordinary, or it could contain an unusual characteristic that makes collectors stop and take notice. So grab your coin, look closely, and see what you can discover. If you find a strange error, unusual design, or rare-looking feature on your 2002 1 euro-cent, share what you found in the comments. You never know, your little coin could become the next fascinating story in the world of coin collecting.